Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to JFI Radio. I'm Yousepha Fawcett, and this month I'm bringing you a JFI Radio live broadcast special. Something I think is going to be more exciting right now to share with you, and it's an episode focused entirely on what's happening to shape the emerging quantum era in professional development landscape. Now, yes, this is new. It's a term I coined just a couple of weeks ago at the end of April, and it's the focus of my research, my work, everything that I plan to be doing between now and 2030. Now, this has really piqued my interest, and I hope that some of my enthusiasm comes across to you as well, and I can share with you some significant figures and the global picture, because believe you me, it's moving fast. Now, while everybody else is head down into AI still, and there's a long way that we have to go with AI still. But as we're getting head down in that, there's a lot of work going on around the quantum era. And whereas they're not exactly like for like, I'm not suggesting one will necessarily morph into the other. They may run in parallel for a number of years, maybe even decades. But this is something that has piqued my interest. And so through my JFI Radio live broadcasts and my forthcoming global news bulletins, I want to make sure that you've got the clearest, most accurate snapshot of where things stand. Everything from investment figures to workforce gaps to what the world and its major economies are actually doing about the quantum era. So let's get into it. Let me paint the picture for you, okay, regarding the global market. Now, the Quantum Economic Development Consortium, it published its State of the Global Quantum Industry report earlier this year. And the headline figures are significant, really significant. So the market for the global quantum technology market, it reached $1.9 billion in 2025. And quantum computing alone accounted for 1.4 billion of that, with quantum sensing adding a further 470 million. The market itself, it reads, as projected to double by 2028, and that will be reaching $3 billion. And the projections put the figure at over 20 billion by 2030. Now, when you look at public investment worldwide, the figures are even more staggering. It looks like it's crossed $56.7 billion in cumulative commitments. There's private venture capital investment that's reaching about $4.9 billion, and that was just in 2025. And it's more than double the previous record in a single year. Now I think you understand why I think this is significant enough to warrant a special JFI Radio live broadcast. Now, the area that really interests me is about workforce and workforce development and the workforce gap. And what is called the global pure play quantum workforce stood at approximately 16,500 professionals at the end of 2025, which is a 14% increase year on year. Now, pure play quantum, that's about companies whose entire business is focused exclusively on quantum technology, which is quite different to companies like IBM or Google, where their quantum work is just one division of many of the things that they do. So, in fact, the real workforce issue, the gap, is considerably bigger. But even if we look at it sort of, I don't know, suppose conservatively, the gap in itself, the job openings in quantum related fields, well, they're up by 180% since 2020. Now, for every qualified quantum professional that is available in the marketplace, there are 3 open positions, which makes anybody who is currently studying as a quantum professional likely to be in a very good place in terms of picking the kind of job that they want to do. McKinsey, they've written and reported and estimated that 250,000 quantum professionals are going to be needed globally by 2030. And by 2035, they've said that that figure could rise to 840,000. So the talent gap isn't a future problem, it's today's problem. And anybody listening to this that works in higher education institutions might want to look at that. There are programs coming through, but okay, by 2030, 250,000 professionals that are needed in the quantum era, that's really worth holding on to. Now, somebody that I've been listening to recently is Dr. Celia Merzbacher of the Quantum Economic Development Consortium. And she's identified that the quantum workforce needs to fall into 3 broad categories. So there's the hardware category of quantum, there's the software category, and then there's the third category. That's the one I'm interested in, the business and professional skills. And the majority of roles within each of those categories, some require obviously quantum specific expertise, but in that third one, business and professional skills, they don't necessarily need quantum specific expertise. And the gap isn't just technical, is it? It's human. And that's exactly where JFI and all of my sub-brands, so you know the JFI Radio and JFI Academy and JFI Store and JFI Research, and my lovely new landing space, JFI Learning Village, that's where I'm focusing in all of those areas, the professional development category, and looking specifically at the quantum era in professional development. That's why I coined the term, because that's where my focus is going to be. So let me give you this snapshot of where other countries and what they're doing in transition to the quantum era. I'm going to start with the United States, and the companies, the American companies, raised $2.7 billion in venture capital in 2025, the largest national share of global investment. And as you would imagine, the US leads in quantum computing hardware development. With IBM and Google and Microsoft and IonQ, they're the main players that most of us know about. And they have the US National Quantum Initiative, which actually was established in 2018. Now, I've only just come into this, so I didn't realize that that was in existence. But some of you that are listening to this maybe have been looking at quantum for a while and maybe knew it was there. That's now been renewed. That initiative has now been renewed to 2030, and there's going to be expanded funding. 19 new quantum startups were founded in the US last year on their own. 19. We're just at the start, at the tip of this. There's something really big bubbling under the surface. And American universities, they've actually taken this very quickly, and they have some of the strongest quantum research portfolios internationally, with MIT, with Caltech, the University of Chicago, and of course Stanford. They're the ones that are mainly leading this particular initiative. Let's move across now to China. So China filed 54% of all international quantum patents in 2025, the largest national share globally. And it has a 2026 to 2030 plan designating quantum technology as a core strategic industry alongside, in parallel with, AI and brain-computer interfaces. And the Chinese government investment in quantum research and infrastructure is estimated to be somewhere between $15 and $20 billion. Now, I'm going to shock you. That's since 2016. 10 years. 10 years march on this. Really interesting. They've got the University of Science and Technology of China. Now, I'm going to try very carefully to pronounce this word. They've produced the Zuchongji, that's better, Zuchongji quantum processor. That's why you can always tell this is live, because normally if this was pre-recorded, I would have edited out all my earlier versions. Zuchongji, I think, quantum processor. Which demonstrates computational advantage in benchmark testing. So I've got my teeth tied up with this Zuchongji quantum processor. Certainly one to watch. I'll put the spelling of it into the show notes. Obviously, China's approach is state coordinated, but it's happening at a scale and a speed that the US model is finding really, really difficult to match. That's not surprising, but they've had the march on this for at least a decade. How about we move over to the globe, to Europe and the European Union and Nordic corridor. So in Europe, there's the EU Quantum Flagship Programme with a €1 billion budget over 10 years. And this is still in its implementation phase. And the total investment from the EU and member states is estimated at between $7 and $12 billion. Just let that lie there for a moment. Quick sip of water. So $7 and $12 billion. I said at the beginning that this was impressive. This was significant. That's why I'm bringing this to you. Now, the European Quantum Commission, I'll try that one again. The European Quantum Communication Infrastructure Initiative. You try saying that on a Friday morning. They're building quantum secured communication networks right across the continent. And the Quantum Europe Strategy, which was actually only published last year, it establishes the EU's ambition to lead in quantum sensing, quantum communication, and quantum simulation. So those three I think are worth watching: quantum sensing, quantum communication, and quantum simulation. And their plan is to do that by 2030. Now, within Europe, the Nordic corridor is spoken about quite a lot when you're talking about the quantum era. And it's an area that interests me because I spend so much time in Norway, and it's going to make my trips to Norway that much more exciting because I'll be looking at it with a completely different lens from now on. Now, somewhere I haven't been yet, I've been to 42 countries and worked there, but I've not worked in Finland, so that's on my list. Now, Finland is home to IQM quantum computers, and apparently it's Europe's leading quantum hardware company. And also VTT Technical Research Centre, which apparently again operates one of the most capable quantum computers in the EU. This is like, I can feel my trips are going to be governed by some of this research and some of these centres and computers that are set up. Please, could I just point out to you, I'm not even pretending to be a quantum scientist by any means. Far too late for me to do that now, but it doesn't stop me being interested. It doesn't stop me being excited about this, and that I think you can hear from my voice. Let's go look in Sweden. Sweden has the Wallenberg Centre for Quantum Technology that does a lot of significant research, has a programme just for that. And Norway is connected to the European quantum ecosystem, and it's made many public commitments to quantum adjacent technology investment. That's interesting, through the Research Council of Norway and Innovation Norway. Now, I I'm not sure if I can get in. I'm going to try, because there is IQT Nordics convening in Oslo next month in June. And I'm going to look and see if it's possible for me to get over there. If I can, I'm going to do some bespoke podcasting with the attendees. And these are going to be people that are working at the intersection of quantum technology and professional development in the Nordic region. So I'll let you know more through my social media posts if I've been able to bag a ticket to go to the convention in Oslo next month. What about the UK, my home country? Well, the UK National Quantum Strategy was published a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, 2023. There's a commitment of £2.5 billion over 10 years, and that's a mixture of both public and private sector collaboration. And in the UK, we have some superb universities and university-level quantum research happening in Bristol and Oxford and Cambridge and Imperial College London. And many of them host leading quantum companies, including Oxford Quantum Circuit. So before I go trekking on over to Oslo, it seems I need to do a little bit more research and wandering around the UK itself. The UK Quantum Network, it connects research institutions with a commercial quantum communication infrastructure. And even post-Brexit, our relationship with the EU quantum ecosystem, it continues to develop. That we have some access to the Horizon Europe programs, which were restored under the Windsor framework. So that's the UK. I shall be looking at that with significant detail, I have to tell you. Though I have got to say, I do quite fancy going over to Norway again, if for nothing else than to see my lovely friend Andres Lopez. Andres, watch this space. I might be over with you sooner than you think. Let's go into Eastern Europe now, Russia and Kazakhstan. Russia's quantum program is being coordinated through Rosatom, the state nuclear corporation, and they've taken the lead on quantum computing development. And the Russian Quantum Center is in Moscow. They do research, particularly in quantum cryptography and quantum communication. But obviously, since 2022, Russia is internationally isolated. That does complicate its access to certain quantum hardware components and international research collaboration, as you would imagine. So it creates a bit of a drag on progress, but the government still continues to invest despite the sanctions pressure. Let's move over to Kazakhstan. I have a great love for Kazakhstan, having worked over in Astana, now named Nur Sultan, a number of years ago. Now, Kazakhstan has a national quantum lab since 2024, and it wants to become the Central Asian hub for advanced technology. And that lab focused specifically on quantum cryptography and quantum sensing. And it's interesting, their strategic location in Kazakhstan, and their investment in digital infrastructure through the what they're still calling the Astana hub tech cluster. It's quite well positioned because it's a regional connector between Russia and China, Chinese quantum ecosystems on one side, and the European and Gulf ecosystems on the other. I have to tell you, it's an absolutely fascinating place to visit. I would love to go back to Nur Sultan. It's a very, very long and difficult journey to get there. I might have to wait a little while for that one. The last two places I want to give you a bit of a snapshot about is Qatar and Pakistan. Qatar's using their own sovereign wealth to build quantum adjacent capability through the Qatar Computing Research Institute, which is part of the Hamad bin Khalifa University. And they're focusing on quantum algorithms, quantum machine learning, and the application of quantum computing to problems in energy, logistics, and finance. And their proximity to the major energy infrastructure it makes some sense for them to be a natural early adopter of quantum sensing applications. Now, Hamad bin Khalifa University, I believe, has been a few times to the MENA Health conference run by Clicks over in Dubai. And so I'm back over there podcasting for Clicks and MENA Health in September 2026. And if I see the university there, I'm actually going to approach them with Olka. By the way, Olka is my newly named roving mic. You'll learn more about Olka over the coming months. And I'm going to ask them more about it because now I'm dipping my toe into the quantum era. I am, as you know, incredibly curious about most of these things and want to know more. I've got lots of questions to ask. Even they may not be very scientific questions, but they're questions nonetheless. The last area I want to talk to you about is Pakistan. They've seemed to have developed a specific niche in quantum cryptography and quantum key distribution. It's driven by national security considerations, and this I found incredibly interesting, a very strong academic capability in physics and mathematics. Now, their National University of Sciences and Technology in Islamabad produced internationally recognized quantum research. And Pakistan's quantum program, it is smaller in absolute terms than many of the other places I've been talking to you about, but it's generating some genuine expertise and it's attracting international attention. And what's so interesting for me about that is you don't have to be one of the big global corporate players to have a voice and to be heard. So go Pakistan! From someone who runs a small privately run radio, JFI Radio podcast, I know how important it is to focus on quality and depth and quality of expertise. So yeah, go the smaller countries, that's for sure. Well, what can I tell you? Time goes very, very quickly when I start on one of my interest areas or something I want to bring to you. And I hope that the picture that I have painted for you, this global picture, it shows you that every major economy, they're all investing really heavily in quantum technology, and every single one of them faces the same underlying challenges. The technical capability is really advancing much faster than we're actually able to manage. And we don't want to get caught out in the same way that we got caught out with the AI explosion. We need to learn how to manage how to deploy quantum technology and the associated areas wisely. We need to know how to lead effectively within this emerging era, and we need to develop organizations that are going to make it genuinely useful, and as I said, not get caught out. And that's the challenge that I'm looking at in JFI, the human capability gap. It's where for me, it's where the most important professional development work of this decade needs to happen. And I am completely all over it. So before I close, I want to share something really exciting with you, something that's coming to JFI Radio. It's a new feature. It's called JFI Radio in ... conversations. So each season, I'm going to be having in-depth conversations with specially selected people who have something real to say. There's going to be no hype, there's no jargon, there's no corporate backing, there's no adverts. Just people who are passionate about the topic that I want to bring to them, and they bring their own perspective. Now, I mentioned seasons. The first season starts in summer 2026, and it will be JFI Radio in quantum era conversations. I will post more in my socials and on JFI Radio and keep you up to date with the very first of those conversations. Can I just tell you, this has been JFI Radio Special, a real special, for sources that I have been quoting to you. And any further reading, I will put them in the show notes. You'll find them on jfiradio.com shortly. You can find me on LinkedIn. And if you have a question, then why not write to me at listen@jfiradio.com. Now, I can see here, I was just looking at the live to see if there was any live chat, and oh, thank you. I think that is Maria or Marianne. Not sure. Maria or Marianne, thank you for the little emoji and all the hearts. I am delighted. Thank you so much for contributing in that way. It really means a great deal to me. Thank you. My name has been Yousepha Fawcett. Until next month, take care. Thank